This vacation or time off last week was planned
Hmm.
out months ago.
Yep.
And then, as usual, one of us is not around. Things happen. Like there's a new combined
Yeah.
Surface Windows leader named Pavan,
Is he
who
new? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Okay.
there's him. The old guy who was tweeting out that he was going to add features to Windows is now out of Microsoft.
The old guy. Yeah. Well, he's not an old guy. I see. I'm sorry.
But
Yes.
the,
Yes.
the the
Yeah.
current guy who we assumed was running the show for
I got to
Windows.
tell you, the most credible thing that has come out of Microsoft in the past 365 days
Mhm.
was that guy, Mikhail, whatever his name is,
Mhm.
Pakahin or whatever, standing up and saying, "Yep, I'm out. I'm not doing it." Like just
Well,
saying no. I when this little reorg that wasn't a reorg
mhm.
that created a new organization, which is not a term, comprised or led completely by outsiders at a company that is full of AI talent. I thought to myself, something's not right here. This is not.
So a
And,
little
and
a little
that
inside
I'm
baseball.
surprised this is the only pushback we've heard from about.
A little inside baseball.
Hmm.
That individual you're referring to is very smart. Um,
Hmm.
However, he was not very well liked internally. I think is
Yeah. Oh, well, he
potential.
came from. He was part of an acquisition.
Was he?
I can't remember anymore. There's so many AI companies now, but he came as part of an early AI investment on Microsoft's part or whatever.
So the new guy, Pavan, uh, two interactions with him. Both one was at a Surface event and one was at the Windows 10
Yeah, he
release.
was at the Surface event, uh, AI event back in September. He was there, right?
Yep,
In fact, he was the one who spoke, I think, about.
he might have been.
Or
He's been around for. He's
he
very.
was on stage. He
He's
spoke
a great
about
guy.
it. Yeah, he is a
Uh,
great guy. Yeah.
so many, many, many years ago, this was when the Surface Pro X was announced. I
Hmm.
can't remember the code name of the CPU, but I remember seeing him there, and I ran up to him and was like, "Hey, hey, hey! Was the
Hmm.
code name for this processor? I can't remember what the name of it
So this
was.
is the SQ1
Yeah, this is many years.
Qualcomm
The
derivative. Yeah.
OG Surface Pro on ARM,
Yep.
not the RT, but
Well,
the
I no, we know what you mean. Yep.
yeah Pro.
Yep.
And he started to answer, and then PR came over and said, "We're not going to answer that question." And he
I
just
had
looked at me
that
and just went,
experience with Stevie Batish at one of those big events you and I went to, the
"Yeah,
one with the headphones and other stuff, and we were in the product. Actually, maybe it was the original Surface built.
yeah,
No, it couldn't have been Surface Book. But anyway, whatever the event was, I remember I walked up to Stevie, and Surface Book, the two gens had that weird teardrop
yep,
gap, And I was like, Stevie, listen, I get that you guys are excited about the hinge and everything, but surely the goal is to make that thing lay flat. And he said, oh yeah. He goes, obviously we've been iterating on this design for a while. We feel that it's good now, but we're moving forward. And then this PR person came and said, yeah, that's enough of that.
mm,
And because obviously when you're trying to sell a new product,
right." You don't want to say
you
better
don't want to
opinions.
talk about like it's only going to be better in the future.
The
I don't.
second time I was with him was at when Microsoft still had the loft in NYC. I don't think they still have that place. I don't know if they still do or not. Whatever.
They rented that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's gone as far as like they've kind of moved on from that.
But he was there, and I can't remember. This was before you and I were even working together. I mean, this was a while ago.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to him for like 20 minutes about taskbars on Windows 10. And I cannot remember why we got on this conversation, but I remember I think it was Ben Reed was there. And he goes,
Yeah.
"Well, that's
Ben
enough of
Reed
that
from the
time."
Fantastic Four. Anybody?
Yeah.
Anybody? No. Okay.
It just like we spent the whole time talking about taskbars, and he's like, "That was great." And then PR was just like, "Well, that was useful."
You know what? Though? Come on.
Yeah,
That's everything you need to know about PR. That
yeah,
was useful.
it was.
He's him and one of the other people in this, the Windows adjacent, whatever, has been tweeting about this kind of stuff. Like taskbars and start menus,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And I, I went while you were gone. I reinstalled Windows 10 to kind of reacquaint myself with that
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
operating system everyone's still using, and was reminded of the whole taskbar right click,
Mhm.
legacy UIs. It's weird to me. Here's a fun little tip. I might write this. I might even do a little video about this. Um, I very much prefer the file explorer in Windows 10.
Yeah.
You know, it's minimalist. It doesn't have a bunch of adornment crap on it. I can't claim that it's like faster or, whatever. File operations, I'm sure they're all the same. But do you know, like, this thing is still in Windows 11, and that the easiest way to bring it up is to open Control Panel and then click the up arrow thing, and it goes into old File Explorer.
Well, let's
Yeah.
try this. So,
It's crazy.
Control Panel.
Yeah, so there's like an up to
yeah,
desktop. Yeah, it goes right to the old,
Well, look at that.
ribbon-based. I'm like, and then you see this, and I'm like, I want this now. Like, I want this to be the thing. And it's it's listed as one of the File Explorer windows. Like, if you have it in your taskbar, it's just, you know what I mean? It's the same process, I guess, or whatever, obviously underneath. Anyway, I look, you are working at a company that is doing what it can to fix all of this stupid crap in Windows right now. And I look at something like that and I think to myself, look, this is me getting old, maybe, I don't know, but
yeah.
I just want to go back. I don't want this new stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And I feel like what they're going to do is rip out the vestigial remainders of this stuff, making this stuff impossible and probably harming some of your competitors, because I'm sure that a lot of these, third-party start menu, taskbar, whatever replacements rely on this old code still.
Well, they do. That's 24H2. That's where that happens. So what I don't the word soup I'm trying to get out of my brain here is I don't have 24H2 on this computer, but I'm wondering if that control panel trick you just did actually dies with the Canary build.
I am guessing that the only reason it's still there is because it's required for control panel. And that itself has been an ongoing discussion in Windows since, I guess, Windows 8, right? When they started with the settings app. And when are they just going to get rid of, and it's not that simple, guys, right? I mean, obviously, if they could have, they would have by now. So I don't know. That's an interesting thing. I mean, maybe there's a way to host control panel inside of a container or something, and they can finally get rid of that. I don't know. Just get rid of the up arrow.
That might be
that would do it, right?
That might be.
Although actually, I mean, I think if you bring up control panel, because this is an address bar, right? Like, you could probably just type in like C. I bet this works. Yeah, you could just type in like C : / and it goes.
Yeah. They'd have to nuke that whole like top rail.
Yeah, I don't know how this thing is orchestrated or implemented, but very clearly, well, control panel is. Maybe you just figure out a way to have it be hosted inside the modern control or the modern Explorer, File Explorer. I don't know. Who cares? I don't think. Yeah. This is a Brad problem, not a Paul problem.
It's about to be everybody's
problem. I'm just speaking theoretically. This matters to you, but
yeah, if they rip out old File Explorer, but whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's not like it's convenient to run. I'm not going to run control panel and then up arrow every time I want to use it. I mean, so whatever.
Right. So.
Anywho, Brad, you were away.
I was.
There were continued issues with our podcast feed, which we believe now are.
I wonder if that's been fixed now.
Fixed, right? We've gone through 3 generations, for lack of a better term, of fixes, but we believe that that's fixed. So if that's a concern, we apologize. But I wanted to ask you about one of your vacation traditions, for lack of a better word. And that is, I don't know if anyone follows Brad on social media, but if you do, you might have noticed when he goes on an actual vacation, I don't mean like a work trip, but like an actual vacation, Brad always reads a book.
I do.
You're like a Bill Gates Think Week guy, but you read a book, like a book from the like 1800s kind of a book.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about this.
I do.
Why?
So the one I read on this trip was called How Big Things Happened. I can't remember who wrote it.
Was it written by the Windows Insider team? Sorry. How Little Things Never Happen Correctly by that
big
group.
Shout out to Bing for not getting. Jesus Christ! Why is this? How big things happen. Yeah. Hey, Google pull it up right away. Penguin Random House. Here, let's.
The point is, though, Brad, this thing was made on dead trees,
Yeah.
and I'm curious. I don't. It's like it's not enough to have killed the tree. We're also going to stamp its dead body with ink,
Well,
and then
I figured AI wasn't doing enough to mow down the rainforests, so I was like, how else
Yep.
can I contribute? And so this is the book.
This is the book. I wasn't so much. The book is interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't. The book itself is interesting.
You're just more interested
I
why
guess
I
I was
choose-
more curious about your affectation for what I'll call legacy technology.
Have you ever seen the movie Shrek?
Yeah.
You know the donkey,
Yes, I do.
and he goes and does nothing, but then Fiona like comes out of the castle and says, "You're a noble steed," right? And like the donkey's like all proud of that. When I have a book, I feel like a noble steed after I have read the whole thing, and I can
Yep.
put it on my shelf, and it's like that's an
But when you're
accomplishment.
sitting there on the beach and you look to your side, do you see Victorian ladies with umbrellas and full-length dresses on, or do you live in the 21st century with the rest of us?
I mean, it's usually
I
a
don't-
half-empty beer can is usually what or my kid reading another book. My kid actually read and my wife actually read a book on this whole trip too. We all read
Wow.
books.
Like
Um,
books,
like
books, or
books. Yeah,
like books. Look at you guys.
look at that. Like we chopped down
You like
trees.
that?
Made
And then you drove home to your house in Nuketown from Call of Duty in the 1950s, and I mean, it's interesting. That's all. No, I don't.
I don't. I just don't. I don't like reading books on Kindle. That's
Okay.
I.
Interesting.
I like the manual, old school, no
You ever
technology
like
needed.
you have to, lick your finger to get the paper to move because it's so dry, or
The danger of potentially getting a paper cut.
the
right?
paper cut. Yep. The
Like that's all
newsprint.
thrilling. That is
The
that
next
is-
time you do it, you're like, it tastes like, and then your fingers all black, and you're like, why did I just put that in my mouth? That kind of that experience.
Yeah, I like the taste of ink.
I like the taste of the book. I feel like I'm eating the author's soul when I eat his words. I'm just curious.
I just if I'm reading a book, I'm reading a book. I'm not if I'm
Okay.
reading
No,
using a
that's-
Kindle, I feel like I'm reading like a web page or something, and it's like that's the opposite of what I want to be
A
doing. on vacation.
fascinating distinction to me. I just, I read all day long, every day. I read so much. I'm writing an article about reading right now.
Mhm.
But that's fascinating. That's okay.
People are curious about this book. I give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. Wasn't my favorite.
Wow. What's
Well,
the premise here?
How big things get done.
Well, I get that. I mean, in other words, you.
So it's
about accomplishing big goals, not just
the
little
books that I like are the types of book that I wrote, quite literally, like stories about businesses, like how businesses got started, founded, or whatever, like BlackBerry or whatever, or Uber, those kinds of books. And I thought this book was going to be like how projects got started, founded, and like how they progress through their life cycle. But this was more about how all the projects kind of failed. And you could summarize the book up into everybody's bad at predicting budgets. Some people are really bad at it.
budgets. I would include time in there. It's schedule budgets in there as well.
Everything, like the whole project management flow
Yeah.
process. It's not a bad book. Like if you like project management books, you'll probably really like this. But
Okay.
I was hoping for more of like, I don't know if narrative is the right word, but this felt more like I was a student sitting in a class rather than like.
So it's kind of
understanding.
is each chapter at some point just a case study of a particular
Yes,
thing, right?
that is. Yep.
Okay. I mean, this is so I don't want to ruin this, but I'm reviewing Steven Snofsky's book. I finished it, right?
Mhm.
And what this book is about ostensibly is this guy who was at Microsoft for about 25 years and built a lot of software. Except he didn't build any software. All he did was a member or a bystander or the leader of teams that built software, and there is no insight of the type you are speaking of per se. There are observations, and anyone who is a student of history can kind of look back at events and come away with conclusions. And he was inside Microsoft, so these are still valuable.
Mhm.
But as far as, like, for example, things you might want to know, You finished Windows 7. You saw a need to, Windows was going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was no future here. So we're going to take the bold step and we'll be the ones who disrupt Windows. But why did you come up with what you came up with? Like, how did you get to that piece of crap mobile platform that you put in there? That is not explained in this book. It just, this is just what happens. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's the answer I was looking for. He also has a very weak defense of the argument that Windows 7 is nothing more than a service pack to Windows Vista, which is absolutely what it was. And the topic of that book you just mentioned is very much on my mind, because there were a lot of big things. There were big events that happened while he was at Microsoft. I mean, obviously the internet, the switch to 32 and then 64 bits, the transformation of Office into a series of standalone applications, into a bundle, and then into an integrated suite. But this book is an absolute failure on describing how, like, actually what happened, which is kind of the point of the book. I find it to be very strange. It might be constrained by some you left Microsoft agreement, and if you want your millions of dollars,
I can't imagine that.
It's got to be something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, this has been on my mind. I was curious when you had a picture of the book on Instagram or whatever, and I was like, that's fascinating, because that I feel like some of these Microsoft things should have been case studies.
You could probably write a whole book. I mean, Windows Phone, Zune, Windows Media. Like, you could, Internet Explorer would be a great one.
No, and the same. Listen, you can study successes. Here's the problem. This might even be an insight. You can study the history of successful products. Like the iPhone is a classic example. It's fascinating, right? How this company disrupted this industry and just changed the world, right? The problem is there's nothing, you can't learn a thing from this. There is nothing you can do as someone creating a product to try to emulate that thing, other than be a really bad imitation of Steve Jobs. But there is a lot to be learned from failure. And in many ways, I think business case study failures are probably more useful than the successes, because success is often just luck. And then you go through life thinking you've solved it, you've got the key. And it's like, no, you just landed in the right place that one time. This is every billionaire tech idiot. This is, Microsoft aping the Windows licensing model with every product it makes, failing with all of them, that kind of thing. I mean, anyway, I don't know. I'm just babbling my way through this, but it is kind of an interesting topic, which I will now hold in my brain.